It's the summer of 1940 and the North African campaign has begun. The Long Range Desert Group, LRDG, a reconnaissance and covert operations unit of the British Army, has just been formed, tasked with penetrating enemy lines to provide intel and stage raids. Lead these brave soldiers in a series of daring missions or command the Royal Italian Army's formidable forces to stamp out these incursions once and for all. Take charge amidst the chaos of desert warfare, outmaneuver the opposition across open sands and rocky terrain, and remain undaunted.
Hi, my name is Paul Grogan and welcome to the How to Play video for Undaunted North Africa, designed by David Thompson and Trevor Benjamin and published by Osprey Games in 2020. Undaunted North Africa is the second game in the Undaunted series of games and builds on the first game with new rules including vehicles, structures and new types of actions. If you already know how to play Undaunted Normandy, you'll already be familiar with the overall rules of the game, but I recommend watching this video in full as there are a few important changes. Undaunted is a scenario-based game for two players. One player takes on the role of the LRDG and the other the Italian Army. A game plays over a series of rounds. In each round, each player will first choose a card from their hand, which will determine who gets the initiative for that round and plays first. Then in turn order, each player takes their turn, during which they play cards from their hand to perform various actions such as moving the matching counter on the board, scouting a new tile, controlling a tile, attacking an enemy counter, driving a vehicle, and so on. Once both players have taken a turn, the next round begins with both players drawing 4 cards from their deck. If your deck is ever empty, shuffle your discard pile, place it as a new deck, and carry on drawing. During the game, through the use of the bolster action, you can take cards from your supply and add them to your discard pile. These cards then become part of your deck, allowing you to perform actions with them when you draw them into your hand. When you attack an enemy counter, dice are rolled to determine if the attack is successful. If it was, your opponent must remove a card from the game that matches the target counter. If they don't have one in their hand, discard pile or deck, the counter is removed from the board, and that soldier has been killed. The game is played until one side achieves their objective, as described in the scenario. The first thing to do is to choose a scenario to play. For your first game, I recommend playing Scenario 1, Landing Ground 7, which sees the LRDG trying to destroy an Italian landing ground. Find the tiles listed for the scenario and place them as indicated. Note that each tile has an A and a B side. Ensure that you use the correct side. Place any objective markers listed for the scenario. For Landing Ground 7, there are no objective markers placed. However, there are structures in Scenario 1, a fuel dump, a hangar, a plane, and a lorry. Note that these structures have objective points printed on them. Some scenarios will also have escape markers, which are placed as indicated. Scenario 1 does not have these. Each player chooses a side and takes all of the cards, combat counters, and control markers as shown for the scenario. In Scenario 1 for the LRDG, this is the Lieutenant, the Warrant Officer, the Engineer, the Machine Gunner, the Scout, and the Fog of War cards. For the Italians, it's the Platoon Sergeant, the Squad Leader, the Rifleman, the Scout, the Machine Gunner, and the Fog of War cards. Return any counters and cards not in use to the box. Each player should then assemble their deck and their supply as indicated in the setup table. Take all of the cards indicated with a D, shuffle them together, and place them face down as your deck. The rest of the cards marked with an S form your supply. Sort these cards by type and place them face up near you. Place the combat counters as shown in the setup image and ensure they are the right side up. Some scenarios will have vehicles. If so, place the vehicle card near the tiles and ensure the counters are in the right seats. Place all of the damage markers nearby. Place the control markers as shown in the setup image, ensuring that they are the right side up according to the scenario. In Scenario 1, the control markers are all placed with the scouted side up, showing the binoculars. This represents that the tile has been scouted, but is not controlled. Flip the initiative marker to the side as indicated by the scenario and give it to that player. Make sure each player understands what their objective is and how to achieve it, and importantly, what their opponent's objective is. The game is played over a series of rounds, with each round consisting of 3 phases. In Phase 1, each player draws 4 cards from their deck into their hand. If at any point your deck is empty and you need to draw cards, shuffle your discard pile to form a new draw deck and continue to draw until you have 4 cards. In Phase 2, each player secretly selects one of the cards from their hand and places it face down on the table. The cards are then revealed, and the player who played the card with the higher initiative value takes the initiative marker and flips it to their side. If both players played cards with the same value, the player who currently has the initiative keeps it. Phase 3 is where all the action happens. The player who has initiative takes a turn, followed by their opponent. On your turn, you play cards from your hand one at a time in front of you and perform an action. Once you have played all of the cards you can or want to play, your turn is over. Then, you place all of the cards you played this turn and any left in your hand onto your discard pile. Do not draw any new cards until the start of the next round. When you play a card, you have 4 main options. The first option is that you can choose to perform one of the card actions listed on the card itself. For example, the rifleman has a choice to move 1, attack 1, or control. Or, if the soldier is currently in a vehicle seat, you can perform one of the actions linked to that seat. For example, if the rifleman were in the middle seat of the light truck, he could navigate too. A third option is to switch seats with another soldier in the same vehicle. And finally, your fourth option is to hunker down, which means placing the card back to your supply. I'll explain this in more detail later on. Fog of War cards cannot be played on your turn, although they can be used when choosing initiative. I'll explain later how you can get rid of these cards. I'm now going to explain the actions one by one. I'm first going to explain the actions for the soldiers, and then I'll cover the rules for vehicles in a later chapter. The first action to explain is the move action, which can be found on a number of cards. You simply move the counter a number of tiles equal to the number shown, which in this game is always 1. However, you can only move onto a tile which has one of your control markers on it, either side up. So here, for example, this rifleman can move to here or here, but it could not move to here. Which brings me nicely onto the scout action, which unsurprisingly is one of the options on the scout card. The scout action is like the move action, except you can also move onto tiles that do not have your control markers on them. And if you do, you place a control marker on the tile scouted side up. For each control marker placed, you take a Fog of War card from your supply and place it in your discard pile. If your supply ever runs out of Fog of War cards, just take as many as you can. The Italian recon aircraft has a Surveil 2 action. With this action, you choose up to 2 tiles which do not need to be adjacent. And if you choose a tile that doesn't contain one of your control markers, you place one scouted side up and take a Fog of War card in the same way as if you'd scouted the tile. 2 of the LRDG soldiers have a Stalk 1 action. This allows you to move the soldier 1 tile, but you do not need to have a control marker there and no new control markers are placed. The control action allows you to flip over the control marker on the tile where the soldier is from the scouted side to the controlled side. If your opponent controls the tile, also flip their control marker back to the scouted side. Both sides cannot control the same tile at the same time. Note, if your opponent controls the tile and has a soldier there, you cannot control the tile. Some of the soldiers have a bolster action. This allows you to add the number of cards indicated from your supply to your discard pile. And some bolster actions specify a squad. These can only be used to take cards from that particular squad. For example, the Italian tank commander can only bolster these cards indicated with a T. The command action simply allows you to draw the indicated number of cards from your deck, which are then cards that you can play this turn. Note that if your deck ever runs out when drawing cards and you need to draw more, shuffle your discard pile and make a new deck. Be careful not to shuffle in any cards that you have played this round. They are not in your discard pile yet. The Inspire action allows you to take the indicated number of cards back into your hand from ones that you have played this turn, allowing you to play them again. If the Inspire action specifies a squad, the card you take back must be from that squad. Scouts and snipers have the Conceal action, which allow you to place a Fog of War card from your opponent's supply into your opponent's discard pile. And remember that Fog of War cards cannot be played, so by doing this, you're going to restrict the actions that they can play on future turns when they draw the Fog of War card. The Recon action is how you get rid of those pesky Fog of War cards. You can only do this action if you have a Fog of War card in hand and it removes that card from the game. Do not put it back in your supply. And then you also draw another card afterwards. Hunkering down is a special type of action that you can perform with any card except Fog of War cards. When you do this, you simply return the card to your supply. It is no longer part of your deck. If you hunker down with your only copy of card from your deck, this means that you won't be able to take any further actions with that counter. which might sound bad, but it means there's now more chance of you drawing the cards for your other counters. That's the end of most of the movement and support actions. I'll explain the rest when I cover vehicles later on, but for now, let's move to the combat actions. There are 5 different combat actions in the game, and the process for resolving them is mostly the same, but I'm going to focus on the attack action first, attacking a soldier, and then I'll explain how the other actions differ later on. First, choose a target for your attack, which can be any enemy counter with a regular defense value, which is the number inside a shield. You then work out the total defense value of your target, which is the regular defense value of the counter, plus the cover bonus printed on the tile that the counter is on, plus the range, which is simply the number of tiles from the attacker to the target. Then you roll a number of dice equal to the value of the attack action. If at least one of the dice are greater than or equal to the total defense value, the attack was successful. It doesn't matter how many of the dice rolled the number required, only one roll is enough for the attack to succeed, and a roll of 0 is always successful. When attacking a soldier, a success means that you have inflicted an injury. Your opponent must find a card that matches the attacked soldier and remove it from the game. First, they check to see if they have a matching card in their hand, and if they do, this is the one that's removed. If they don't have one in hand, they search their discard pile for one. And if they don't have one in their hand or their discard pile, they then search their deck for one, shuffling their deck afterwards. If they don't have a card in their hand, discard pile or their deck, the soldier is eliminated and the combat counter is removed from the board. Any matching cards in the supply are also removed from the game. Machine gunners have an alternative type of attack called suppress. This is resolved in exactly the same way as a normal attack action, but instead of inflicting an injury, if the attack is successful, the target is suppressed. Flip the target over to the suppressed side, and if it was already suppressed, nothing happens, so there's no point in trying to suppress an already suppressed counter. The next time this soldier would take an action, flip the counter over instead of performing the action. The card is played as normal, it just doesn't do anything. The Italian recon aircraft has a strafe action. This is resolved just like a regular attack, except there is no range bonus added to the target's defense, as the aircraft is considered to be attacking from the same tile. Some tiles represent hilly terrain and have 2 different defense values. They give a cover bonus of 1 if they are attacked by another counter on a hill, whether it's the same hill or another hill, or a bonus of 3 if attacked from anywhere else. That's the basic attack rules covered, explaining about soldier-to-soldier combat, suppressing and strafing. I'll cover the rules for vehicle combat and attacking structures in the next chapter. Undaunted North Africa introduces rules for vehicles, which add a new strategic dimension to the game as soldiers can ride inside them and have access to new actions. You can also capture vehicles from your opponent. During setup, the vehicle counter is placed on a tile as normal, but the corresponding card is placed nearby. Each vehicle has a number of seats, each of which has actions associated with it that a soldier in that seat can perform instead of performing a card action. Vehicles move on the board by means of the drive action. This is very similar to the move action in that you can only drive onto tiles where you have a control marker, either on its scouted side or control side. The only difference is that there are some tiles marked with this icon, which means that you cannot drive a vehicle onto this tile. Some vehicles also have a navigate action, which allows you to choose up to a number of tiles equal to the value of the action and place a control marker there, scouted side up. One of the tiles you choose must be adjacent to the vehicle, and each other tile must be adjacent to at least one other chosen tile. As usual, take a fog of war for each control marker placed. When you play a card for a soldier, they can enter or exit a vehicle on the same tile before or after performing the action. For example, you could play this rifleman card, enter the light truck, and then use the suppress action immediately. And then if you play another card for the same rifleman later in the turn, you could leave the vehicle and then do an attack action. You can also reposition yourself in the same vehicle to an empty seat before or after you perform an action. If you want to switch seats with another soldier in the same vehicle, this actually counts as your action. So you just play the card, switch seats, but you cannot perform another action. Attacking a vehicle works in a similar way to regular attacks. You can never directly attack a soldier inside the vehicle, only the vehicle itself. Most vehicles have 2 shields, one with an outer border. For normal attacks, use the regular defense value. And note that the medium tank does not have a regular defence value and can therefore not be targeted by a normal attack action. The attack is resolved in the same way. The defence value is determined and the dice are rolled. But instead of inflicting injuries, a successful attack damages the vehicle. If you damage a vehicle, you first choose a soldier in the vehicle who takes an injury as described earlier. Your opponent must lose a matching card. But then you also place a damage marker on the vehicle card. If there are now damage markers on the vehicle equal to or greater than the vehicle's critical threshold, the vehicle is disabled and the counter is flipped over. If there are damage markers on the vehicle equal to or greater than the vehicle's integrity, the vehicle is destroyed and removed from the game. Any soldiers in the vehicle are placed on the tile. Suppress attacks work differently against vehicles. If successful, the vehicle is undamaged, but the attacker chooses a soldier in the vehicle and flips it to its suppressed side. Now that I've covered how vehicles get damaged, it's time to explain what this means. When a vehicle is disabled, any soldiers inside that vehicle cannot perform the vehicle actions. However, some cards have the repair action on them, and this allows a soldier to remove a damage marker from the vehicle they are in, or, if they aren't in a vehicle, one on the same tile. And if there are now fewer damage markers than the vehicle's critical threshold, you flip the vehicle back to its ready side. Also, a quick note about vehicles and control. An empty vehicle does not stop you from taking control of a tile. And also, if you enter an empty enemy vehicle with one of your soldiers, it's now your vehicle, and you move the card so that it's near you. Another type of combat action is anti-tank, which is found on some soldiers and on the medium tank. This action can only be used to attack vehicles, and it's the armoured defence value that counts when working out the total defence value. Range and cover bonuses apply as normal, and damage is done to the vehicle as explained earlier. The last type of attack is the demolition action, which can be used to attack a vehicle or structure on the same tile as the soldier taking the action. Demolition attacks use the armoured defence value for vehicles and the structure defence value for structures. There is no cover bonus against demolition actions. If a demolition action is successful against a vehicle, damage it as normal. A successful demolition action against a structure destroys the structure. Remove the tile from the board and place it in front of you. If it depicted any objective points, you score those points. As mentioned earlier, the objective of each side is shown in the scenario book. As soon as a player completes their objective, the game ends immediately without completing the round. Many scenarios require you to claim a certain number of objective points. At any time, your total objective points is counted by adding the objective points from each tile you control. Just scouting the tile is not enough, you need to actually control it. The only way for the LRDG to claim points from structures is by destroying them, and the only way for the Italians to claim points from structures is by controlling the tile they are on. Some scenarios require you to escape with one or more of your combat counters. To escape, you must use a move action that would move the counter from a tile with an escape marker. When a counter escapes, find all of their associated cards from your hand, deck, discard pile, supply and table and remove them from the game. And place the combat counter in front of you to show that it's escaped. Some scenarios require you to neutralise certain enemy counters in order to win. To neutralise a combat counter, you must remove it from the board, either eliminating it if it's a soldier or destroying it if it's a vehicle. And when you do, place the counter in front of you. It can happen, although rare, that you find yourself in a position where you can no longer achieve your objective. In this case, what happens next depends on what your opponent's objective is and how many points each side has. For full details on this, see page 20 of the rulebook. It's the start of the first round of Scenario 6, Vulnerable Encampments, and both Paul and Vicky draw a hand of 4 cards from their decks. Both players choose one of their cards and reveal it simultaneously. Vicky's card has the highest initiative value, so she places the initiative marker in front of her and gets to play her cards first. Both cards are discarded. Vicky has the following cards left in her hand. She wants to advance her medium tank to tile 12A, which is closer to the objective on tile 6B. However, she can't drive this vehicle into spaces that don't contain her control markers. Instead, she starts by playing the Scout card. Before doing anything else with the card, she exits her Scout from the vehicle, moving it from the Scout car to tile 19A. Vicky can still take an action with the card, so she chooses to use the Scout action to move the Scout combat counter. She can move the soldier by as many as 2 tiles, but she decides to only move it 1 space onto tile 12A. Because 12A has no Italian control markers, she places a marker there with the scouted side up. And because she placed a control marker, she takes 1 Fog of War card from her supply and places it in her discard pile. The tile now scouted, Vicky plays her tank driver, using the drive vehicle action indicated by the seat to move the medium tank onto the now scouted 12A. With her machine gunner, Vicky wants to make progress with advancing her scout car. She could switch seats with the rifleman in the driver's seat, but then she wouldn't be able to do anything else with the card. Instead, she decides to reposition her machine gunner into the empty seat left by the scout and then use the navigate vehicle action. Doing so lets her choose up to 2 tiles as long as the first tile is adjacent to the vehicle and the second is adjacent to the first. Vicky chooses tiles 17A and 16B. Because she doesn't have a control marker on 16B, she places a marker there and takes a second Fog of War card for the turn. With no cards left in hand, Vicky has to end her turn, placing all of her played cards in her discard pile. Paul's hand of cards looks like this. He wants to take out Vicky's medium tank before it can cause too much havoc. He cannot make a regular attack with his saboteur, as the tank is too heavily defended to be vulnerable to small arms fire. He'll need to use his demolition action instead, but he cannot do so from the tile he is on. Paul decides to stalk, moving his saboteur to 12A. Next, he uses his warrant officer to inspire his saboteur. This lets him return the card he has just played to his hand, and then using the card he has just picked up, he uses the demolition action against the medium tank. Having chosen his target, he works out the medium tank's total defense value by adding its armoured defense of 5 to any cover or range bonuses. Because demolition actions ignore cover bonuses, and his saboteur is on the same tile as the tank, neither bonus adds anything to the defense value of 5. The saboteur's demolition action has a value of 2, so Paul rolls 2 dice. He scores a 5 and an 8. It's a hit. Vicky now needs to take damage on her medium tank. First, Paul chooses 1 soldier in the tank to take an injury. He chooses the tank driver. Vicky has no cards in hand, so she checks her discard pile for a tank driver and removes it from the game. Then, 1 damage marker is placed on the medium tank card. It can only take 2 more damage before it's disabled. Paul's final card is a Fog of War card, which he can't do anything with. He ends his turn by moving the Fog of War card and the cards he played this turn into his discard pile. Now that both players have taken their turns, the next round begins. Each scenario is a standalone game and you can play whichever one you want to. However, the order of them in the scenario book follows the real military campaign that took place. You can also play a series of them one after another, keeping score to see who the overall winner is. I hope you found this video useful in learning how to play Undaunted North Africa. Please remember to subscribe, like and leave a comment on the video if you enjoyed it. And thank you to Osprey Games for sponsoring this video, along with all of my Patreon supporters that help fund the work I do. If you like the content that I create, please consider supporting me at patreon.com/gamingrules. Until next time, take care and thanks for watching. Gaming Rules is proudly sponsored by Game Toppers, upgrading your gaming experience. Visit GameToppersLLC.com.